Welcome to our Metastatic Breast Cancer podcast for February 2022, where our focus will still be on our book, No Mud, No Lotus, The Art of Transforming Suffering by Thich Nhat Hanh, who recently passed away. And so I'll offer a few moments of silence at the end of our podcast today to honor this enlightened Buddhist monk's legacy, life, and teachings. And this month we are moving into chapter 4, which is focused on ease. And Thich Nhat Hanh talks about in this chapter how we can actually be able to move through life with ease, through the suffering. And he says, some of the situations and accidents that cause us the greatest suffering when seen objectively do not look very big. But because we don't know how to manage them, they feel enormous. If we lose a loved one, that is, of course, a major loss. There is real pain there, and we feel it mightily. But we can also spend days worrying that someone doesn't like us, or that we didn't say or do the right thing, or that we won't get the promotion we want. And the list goes on. And let's be honest, so much of our time is in our own heads. And so how are we able to befriend ourselves on this journey in life so we can dial down that constant, habitual, internal negative narrative and actually dial up more moments of silence, of stillness, and of ease? These may seem like small sufferings, relatively speaking, but we magnify them until they seem to take up all our mind space. If we know how to handle the little sufferings, we don't have to suffer on a daily basis. We can let go of the little miseries and save our energy to embrace and soothe the true pains of illness and loss that are unavoidable. There is a Buddhist teaching found in the Salatha Sutta known as the arrow. It says if an arrow hits you, you will feel pain in that part of your body where the arrow hit. And then if a second arrow comes and strikes exactly at the same spot, the pain will not be only double, it will become at least 10 times more intense. The unwelcome things that sometimes happen in life, being rejected, losing a valuable object, failing a test, getting injured in an accident, or sickness and illness, are analogous to the first arrow. They cause some pain. The second arrow fired by our own selves is our reaction, our storyline, and our anxiety. All these things magnify the suffering. Many times the ultimate disaster we're ruminating upon hasn't even happened. We may worry, for example, that we have cancer and that we're going to die soon. Or we may have cancer, as all of you do, living with metastatic breast cancer. But are you able to accept your diagnosis? And are you able to find some kind of peace and stillness and joy in your everyday life? Or are we resisting what is, refusing to accept the reality of our lives and situations? The fear of the unknown often makes this pain grow even bigger. The second arrow may take the form of judgment or anger. We can quickly conjure up a hell realm of negativity in our minds that multiplies the stress of the actual event by 10 times or even more. Part of the art of suffering well is learning not to magnify our pain by getting carried away in fear, anger, and despair. We build and maintain our energy reserves to handle the big sufferings. The little sufferings we can let go. Instead of throwing good energy away on condemning yourself or obsessing over what catastrophes might be lurking around the corner, you can simply be present with the real suffering that is right in front of you, with what is happening right now. Mindfulness is recognizing what is there in the present moment. And we talk a lot about this concept in our monthly metastatic breast cancer mindfulness groups that if you haven't attended, we would love to have you a part of. And they are complimentary to any metastatic breast cancer patient. Suffering is there, yes, but what is also there is that you are still alive. Breathing in, I know I'm alive. Your eyes still work. Breathing in, I'm aware of my eyes. Breathing out, I smile to my eyes. And this is a practice that we will end today's podcast with. To have eyes in good condition is a wonderful thing. Because you have eyes in good condition, there's a paradise of shapes and colors available to you at every moment. There are those among us who have gone blind. They've lost that endlessly changing kaleidoscope of shapes and colors, and what they want more than anything most likely is to have that faculty back again. You only need to open your eyes to be in touch with that kaleidoscope. It's a paradise. If you only stop to notice and appreciate it. If you have eyes in good condition, just open them and enjoy what you see. Happiness is possible immediately, even if not everything is perfect. And what is perfect after all? If we're waiting for everything to be perfect in our lives, we may never get there. Perfection is unattainable. We are imperfect. We are human beings having an imperfect experience. So instead of trying to strive towards perfection, meditation and mindfulness teaches us to accept the reality of what is and to embrace feeling joy in each moment, irrespective of the suffering that may also be present. Happiness is possible immediately. And that is a reminder that we need to truly embrace, and is one that I want you to all be contemplating and living mindfully with intention for the month of February. Most of the second arrows with which we shoot ourselves come from our beliefs. One basic problem that causes us to suffer is the idea that we are a separate self. This gives rise to the complexes of inferiority, superiority, and equality. As long as we have the idea of a self, we try to protect this self by running away from all kinds of threats and discomforts. If there is some loneliness, some anger, or some fear, we don't like it, and we try to pretend that the suffering is not there. It's nothing, we say, often nervously, trying to sweep all the feelings under the rug. We create unnecessary pain when our reaction to an unpleasant event is to compare ourselves with other selves, reinforcing our illusion of separateness. We may feel a fleeting satisfaction when we tell ourselves, I am better than he is. I don't care what he says. That's the complex of superiority. Or we may try to immunize ourselves from disappointment by thinking, I'll never be as good as she is. There's no point in trying. That's the complex of inferiority. Most people think the best way to deal with these complexes is to maintain the belief, I am their equal. But that is also a complex invented by the comparing mind. Equality, when it refers to opportunity and access to resources, in other words, treating everyone's needs and feelings with respect, is a great thing. But the constant effort to prove oneself equal to all others brings only short-lived relief from the pain of discrimination, and ultimately creates more suffering because it perpetuates our incorrect belief in a separate self. If we think, I claim the right to be as good as he is, there is still the idea of a separate self, and therefore there will always be comparison. As long as you continue to compare, you suffer from the fear of coming up short, and even worse, you keep yourself trapped in a constant painful delusion of isolation and alienation. And this is something that we all may fall prey to, even more so over the past few years, where we have spent more time on technology. We have spent more time on social media. And I want to share now a story that Thich Nhat Hanh relates of the Buddha and Mara. The story about the Buddha meeting Mara illustrates the problem with complexes. In Buddhist stories, Mara is the personification of all depravity and delusion, everything that makes us suffer in life. The Buddha was taking a solo retreat in a cave. His attendant and student, the Venerable Ananda, would go out begging for alms and upon returning would divide his offerings into two, one part for him and one for the Buddha. One morning, as the Buddha was sitting inside the cave in meditation, the Venerable Ananda sitting outside of the cave saw someone approaching. Ananda had an inkling that this was someone very familiar. It was Mara. Ananda wanted to hide somewhere so that Mara, not seeing anyone, would not approach the cave and disturb the Buddha, but it was too late. Mara walked up to Ananda and asked, "Venerable Ananda, is your teacher here?" Ananda wanted to lie and say, "No, the Buddha is not here. The Buddha went to some kind of meeting, conference or something." But lying is not appropriate for a monk. So he finally said, "Why do you ask?" Mara said, "I want to visit the Buddha." Ananda responded rather scornfully, "Go away. You're not a friend of the Buddha. You're his enemy. Don't you remember how you tried to discourage the Buddha from awakening under the Bodhi tree and the Buddha defeated you terribly? The Buddha won't see you." When Mara heard that, he laughed. "Ha ha ha, really? Your Buddha has enemies? I thought he said he doesn't have any enemies. Why is it that he has an enemy now?" Ananda was dumbstruck. So he went into the cave to ask the Buddha if he wanted to see Mara. Ananda was hoping the Buddha would refuse. But when he heard who was waiting outside, the Buddha said, "Mara, let him in." Ananda was really disappointed, but he was obliged to go out and let Mara in. When Mara entered, the Buddha stood up and welcomed Mara as if he were an old friend. He invited Mara to sit down in a distinguished place and asked Ananda to bring tea and water for Mara to drink. Ananda was really unhappy about it. He would be happy to get tea for the Buddha 200 times a day, but for Mara, Ananda didn't want to do it at all. But he went and got tea for Mara, hoping that Buddha and Mara would have a short conversation. In fact, the conversation ended up being very long. Buddha and Mara spoke as if they were the best of friends. Buddha said, "Mara, how has it been for you? How are you doing?" Mara said, "Not very well." "What happened?" the Buddha asked. Mara answered, "My disciples aren't listening to me anymore. They used to do everything I told them to, but nowadays they want to rebel. All my generals, all my soldiers, all my disciples, they want to practice mindfulness. They want to practice walking meditation. They want to practice eating in silence. They want to protect the earth. I don't know who got to them. Dear Buddha, I'm just so tired of being Mara. I want to be someone else. Don't think that being Mara is all wild parties, fun and games." The Buddha laughed. "You think being a Buddha is such a lark? Do you know that people say things that I have never said, and then they say it is I who said that? They do things that I have never done or encouraged them to do, but they say that I encourage them to do those things. I let go of my exalted reputation, my princely position, and an endless availability of sensual pleasures. I abandoned my throne, my beautiful wife and baby, future children and wealth, all so that I could realize liberation. But now people come to the temple to pray and plead with me to give them all the very things I have renounced. They don't ask for peace or joy. They just ask for lots of money, power, or for their children to have good grades on their exams. They build a big house and they say it's my house, but it's only a place where people come to pass by and offer food, bananas, sweet rice, and money, so that they can have more money to spend on themselves. They make statues of me and they stick all their money on my body. When they celebrate my birthday, they put my statue up on top of a car and they drive mindlessly through the city while my body rocks from side to side. I didn't ever want to be riding on a car. So don't think that being Buddha is lucky. Do you want to exchange places? Ananda was terrified that Mara would agree, but luckily he didn't. Then the Buddha said, "Mara, you do your job. Do your job the best you can. I'll do my job. Nothing is easy all the time. I know being Mara is very difficult, but being a Buddha has its difficulties too. Each one of us has to play our part wholeheartedly. Every life has its trials and tribulations. We can navigate them more skillfully when we don't waste time and energy shooting ourselves with a second arrow, such as dwelling on how much greener the grass in our neighbor's yard looks compared to ours. And this is a very valuable story that we can utilize throughout our daily lives to feel peace and joy and balance in each and every moment of our days. We hope that you will join us for our Metastatic Breast Cancer Mindfulness Group in February. And I invite you to sit with longer time beyond this podcast as we end today by saying, breathing in, I know I'm alive. Breathing in, I'm aware of my eyes. Breathing out, I smile to my eyes. And we'll end today with a few moments of silence to honor the life, legacy, and teachings of the enlightened monk Thich Nhat Hanh, who was given so much to this world through his teachings on love, compassion, and activism.